increasing our electric vehicle work as a part of our broader fleet electrification efforts, and of course, fresh and affordable food access, and our partners in Department of City Planning, Office of Policy, Invest Atlanta, and many of our community partners across the city. And I'll talk about another opportunity to help inform that work towards the end. So this is just a snapshot of the engagement that got us 18 months or so of engagement that got us towards completing and developing that climate resilience action plan framework that we will be focused on. The climate perils data, we worked in partnership with Fannie Mae and their climate team to put those perils together. They've worked with a few cities. And for that community-wide, city-wide engagement, we are excited to be working with Hummingbird Firm. And these are the approaches and strategies that we'll be using, and our project impact. We want to engage at minimum 2,500 individuals across the city. But something I say is that my goal is that nobody's going to come up to me and say they didn't know that the city was working on this. So really need and appreciate previous council members' help on getting this out. Councilmember Boone, Council President Shipman. I've sent this out. I'll send it out to you all again as we're going to be in your district as we focus on specific areas to make sure we're getting as much input as possible. And we have the survey that we can circulate. And definitely want to keep this out because all the feedback from this survey informs actions that will help us advance the framework. So that cool roof legislation is an example of the type of action that we're hearing from community, other partners, other departments, is how we want to inform our climate resilient ATL action plan. Lots of feedback. We also got grateful to the Partnership for Department of City Planning through the Plan A engagement as well. We're also doing a logo design contest. So the mayor's office did this some years ago, and we think this is a great opportunity to engage influencers and creatives in the importance of climate action in the city. So appreciate your help in getting that information out. And then some other general updates as we talk about approaching 100% clean energy. Critically important that we're engaged in the integrated resource plan process at the Public Service Commission. It's right across the street. If you haven't been over to the Public Service Commission, if you've never called a Public Service Commissioner, now is the time to do so. This is a 4 to 5 month process where Georgia Power presents this plan for how it's going to meet our energy for the next 20 years. Where does it come from? Generally, there is a process to talk about how much it costs in a rate case. You may have seen some news that may be getting delayed this year under the auspices of some headlines talking about a rate freeze. But it's important to remember we don't pay rates, we pay bills. And our bills are made up of rates, our bills are made up of costs. So we want to make sure that there's still a transparent process for the city. As a multi-stakeholder, we are a large user, we are an industrial user, and we also serve constituents. So we are a triple stakeholder in this process. And hearings start today. So there's another round of hearings and public comment happening at the Public Service Commission right now for the next 3 days. Related to our Solar Atlanta program, we have been working with Cherry Street Energy on a rate analysis for our solar for the better part of a year. We've identified 9 of our city facilities that are eligible for a rate change. We're going back and forth with Cherry Street and the company, Georgia Power, right now. This could produce a savings this year of $27,000 for the city just by changing our rate. And over the remainder of our contract term, that's another $500,000 of savings on city's utility bills. Back to that fleet electrification goal, we'll dive deeper into this in our next quarter. There's been a lot of activity happening with our electric vehicle readiness ordinance. Super excited to pass that ordinance update in January. It will go into effect January 1, 2026. We've had one in-person working session on the workbook that accompanies the ordinance, and we'll have another session virtual that I believe is this week. This is a picture last week, that we have a shared about $3.2 million grant to replace some of our medium and heavy-duty vehicles with some of our Department of Public Works, the airport, and watershed. And last week, there was a site tour. So appreciate Deputy Seidel, Mr. Tim Fitzgerald, and others for helping us put this together. And was really excited to be at Breakfast for the Bravest in this last quarter, and our partnership with Atlanta Fire and Rescue and the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Foundation. Super excited to see them roll out 2 Rivian electric emergency service vehicles. Talked about how we're continuing to move forward with our fresh food access goal. We're doing a food ecosystem survey right now with some partners. Definitely would love your help in getting this out. How is food getting to people? You know that we have our fresh food access map that is constantly being updated. There's some ground truthing that happens with that data in community on the ground. Now, this survey is to dive deeper in that, to learn more about those fresh food access points. And really exciting, we were awarded another $100,000 in addition to the $50,000 that were awarded in 2024 for our Atlanta Youth Climate Action Fund. This is our first list of awardees that we celebrated here at City Hall on Earth Day, which was our very first Youth Climate Action Summit. We have about $40,000 more to distribute. We have about 63 applications in the queue. Another QR code, and we're going to be updating our link tree. We have lots of activity happening to make sure there's one single landing place that people can go to make sure they are up to date and have access to all the different ways we are asking for input from our colleagues here at the city, you all here on council, as well as residents and local businesses citywide. And finally, we did the absolute most during Earth Month. It's probably the most this office has done in a couple of administrations. One of the exciting features, in addition to announcing that we are joining the Global Race to Resilience, hosting the first Youth Climate Action Summit. We hosted our second annual Sustainability and Action Day here at City Hall, focused on food systems, and kicked off our Climate Resilience Action Plan event at C.T. Martin. Again, thanks to Councilmember Boone for getting that information out to her district. And the mayor was featured in the United Nations Climate Action Local Leaders. So you can find this feature all about how we are building up climate resilience here in Atlanta. And with that, I will take any questions.
And thank you, Ms. Farley. Are any questions from our colleagues? The first question would be from Councilmember Ishay Collins.
Yes. Great, thank you so much for this presentation. I do just have a couple of questions for clarity, if that's okay. On slide 6, you talked about in terms of completing the energy audits, and the quick question that I have is that do we have legislation for the energy audits, just in terms of pushing that message out to the general public, or is, because it's part of the pilot, it's truly just that, keeping that information, or the, information about these pieces as a pilot program?
Yeah, so to your first question, the legislation that we had was related to the original donation agreements from the American Rescue Plan Act funds out to our partners. The 4 partners that I mentioned. As far as getting more information out, we do have like a deferred list. We have a waiting list. We are taking lists from Invest Atlanta and their owner-occupied rehab program. We're reaching out to the partners on the city's roof replacement program. We're coordinating with Department of Watershed Management Care and Conserve program, as well as the lead health and safety program that Department of Grants and Community Development is rolling out. So all of those programs are also what we're trying to get our hands around as a part of this effort, and making sure that we are communicating better, sharing lists and data better. One of the things that Partners in Action for Healthy Living that we are working on is establishing a neighborly platform for Weatherize. This is the same platform that Invest Atlanta uses for their owner-occupied rehab program. And so now we're in the process of uploading data, and we'll be able to better manage those lists. So lots of communication still going out, different education events, virtual and in person, that Partners in Action for Healthy Living has posted. But we're not putting out another open call because we're still working through lists of people that are in the pipeline or were moved to a waiting list.
And do you, what is, I don't know if you shared it, what is your anticipated completion date for having these pieces completed?
So the extension is 90 days. So that is our goal. That technically would have started May 1st.
Okay.
And then the additional $200,000, because we won't have access to that until the new fiscal year, then those dollars will also continue to support that effort beyond that and kind of serving as a bridge until we launch our next program, which is Solar for All, in Q3.
Okay, yep, and the fiscal year, is that July 1 or September? You know, it's different fiscal years, July 1,
Our
September
fiscal
1?
year, July 1.
Okay, great, thank you. And then my next question goes to slide 7. You mentioned that you brought up a really great point that I just kind of want to have more information on as well. You talked about as you have these entities that are coming in, these great partners that are coming in to support this effort. One thing that you all are noticing is sort of this workforce compatibility. And so just wanted to have a, just kind of hear more of, are there any conversations of city efforts to push in that space from a workforce perspective? Any kind of like cross collaborations conversations that are happening to really emphasize the emphasize this need of a more compatible workforce in this area?
Yes, absolutely. So we've been staying in lockstep with our Department of Labor and Employment Services. Interim Commissioner Teresa Giddings and I and our team stay in contact about what does it look to incorporate that into our city pipeline. A lot of this work is residential focused, so that is why we are also focusing on our city program pipelines like Care and Conserve, like the roof replacement program, and others.
Thank you. Slide 17, you talked about the EV readiness ordinance. Can you share a little bit more details on what we can anticipate in terms of what that ordinance actually encompasses?
Yeah. So the EV readiness ordinance, it was an update. So our EV readiness ordinance had been on the books for some years. We knew it was due for an update. So we worked for the better part of a year with our interdepartmental EV working group, which includes many of our operating departments, as well as our technical assistance partner, the Electrification Coalition, who supported us with the original ordinance. So essentially, we increased some specifics with that. So now requiring 20% of parking spaces with new construction to be EV installed. So a lot of this was about, we call it an EV readiness ordinance, but there are 3 phases to that: EV ready, EV installed, and EV capable. So we made better breakdowns for those, increased some percentages, and actually added a component for new build residential as well. So the ordinance is about requiring a certain number of parking spots to either be EV ready, EV installed, or EV capable. And so we'll be taking this next year, as I mentioned, with the EV workbook working sessions. This has been open to community in our departments as well. There is a workbook that accompanies the ordinance to help developers, construction companies comply with that ordinance, and we've been getting their input so that everyone is ready when we start to implement that ordinance on January 1, 2026.
Great, thank you. And that's a great segue into my next question, where you mentioned in terms of conversations as we finalize the Plan A comprehensive development plan. Will so based on your comment, is that just kind of like this generalized conversation that's happening, or in the Plan A update, we will see some of these some of these, resilient pieces that you're talking about in there for the the community at large to also be knowledgeable and aware of just kind of ways that we are truly moving in this effort?
Yes, so great partnership with Department of City Planning this year. There has always been a nature chapter
Yeah.
in the Comprehensive Development Plan. Now it is a climate resilience and nature chapter in the Comprehensive Development Plan. So many of the high-level goals that you see when I talk about 100% clean energy, when I talk about food access, when we talk about our climate perils like extreme heat, we're looking at flooding and tree canopy. Many of those actions were recommended from community and departments and are in the current draft of that comprehensive development plan. So when that is finally released, many of those will roll up to our climate resilient action plan.
Thank you. And then my last question, and then I yield, Mr. Chair, is what is I know you're talking about there are grants that, there are multiple dollars of grants and support that is coming in. And I know with the current climate, we're just seeing a lot of more emphasis and stress put on our philanthropic community to support in our efforts. Knowing where we are now, what is the impact that you all are experiencing or anticipate to experience from the federal level of just some of the support that that we could have had or we have had in regards to some of the big pieces that you're looking to move forward in this plan?
Yeah, it's very much whiplash. It's been a lot. We have certainly had about $12 million grant that was supposed to support charging expansion at the airport that is frozen. I just got another update today that another city had theirs unfrozen, so we're working through what are our legal options for trying to have that unfrozen. There are a couple of others. We had about $500,000 through our Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant that was going to go to some of our critical municipal facilities like our wellness center, fire station, and the municipal market. It's unfrozen, as well as a community composting, about $400,000 grant we got from USDA. Technically, they are unfrozen, but what is happening, we don't really know what is going to happen until we actually start uploading those to the platform to get our reimbursements back. So our posture is just to keep moving as fast as possible, staying on top of all the paperwork and forms that we have to get required.
Yep.
So at any point, we're ready to move forward.
Okay. I'm working on this on the federal level, so I would suggest go ahead and post those reimbursements now.
Yeah.
Because they are actively changing priorities across departments to align with, I guess, proactive decisions that they've made. So we can get those reimbursements in as soon as possible. It prevents from being on a route pay condition federally, so that we can't draw down those funds. So just gonna put that out there.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. Great presentation. I appreciate it. Those are all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Our next questions will come from Councilmember Alex Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director. Appreciate the call that you took with the Chief of Staff with me, Councilmembers Bakhtiari and Boone last week. Excited that we're going to be starting to deploy funds for additional funds for Weatherize, and look forward to seeing the impact of that and whether we're in a position to invest more in that. I want to actually, Councilmember Collins started leaning into the questions I had about the funding situation. So I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, but anxious that it's a reimbursement grant, because essentially we've got to take the gamble and front the expenditures and the investments and the projects with potential risk of not, at some point, someone changing their mind and are not being able to do that. What, could you quantify the level of reimbursements that we have ready to go or have expended that are part of these grants that are at risk? What magnitude are we talking about?
That's a good question. If I was if you will. So we are specifically focused right now. We just got service agreements out, Conservation Block Grant. Super grateful to our partners on that who have stuck with us and waiting on that process. So hopefully that will start here within the next couple of weeks. Deputy John R. Seidel has been working with Office of Fleet Services on the clean and heavy duty vehicles. So we're going as fast, going as fast as we can. There's some changes around vehicle types that came from, these are year-long processes from the application to getting awarded, to getting selected, and then getting awarded with the contract. So by the time we got notified for award, for instance, on the one which is still frozen on an airport project, everything had changed. So we had to so it's, $4 or $5 million, let's just say, right now.
And then, yeah, I know, I'm sure y'all are watching the federal budgeting process very closely because the House budget actually changes some of the Biden-era programs in terms of dates and all that. So just keep us posted. This work is important. It's not lost on me that we are entering kind of the active summer weather where we really feel the impact of our sustainability decisions as a country and as a world, planet actually. So, we'll see. I also wanted to thank y'all for the active role that y'all have been playing in the, I got to get the program name right, the Integrated Resource Plan Intervention hearings. I don't think folks realize that a lot of the institutions that are here in Georgia that want to really be aggressive and ambitious with their clean energy plans are so tied to Georgia Power's grid and their composition that they can't do necessarily that much better. So I appreciate the advocacy that y'all are doing there as well. Yeah, I think that was it. Again, Councilmember Collins started asking the questions about the federal funding because at some point the city, we're going to have to make a decision as to how important this is to us, and that if we have to go it alone on these investments, how much capacity we have to do and what our commitment is, because ultimately the investments we make today impact what happens 5, 10, 50 years down the road. So anyway, but I appreciate your candor on it. Again, look forward to the continued conversation about Weatherize and keep letting us know how we can support you in your work. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I'll close with from the report, if the city was to take on reducing energy burden, so folks range from 9 to 19% across our portfolio. It's about a $350 million endeavor to reduce that down to 6% for those impacted households, which is the percentage at which energy burden starts. That is not the city's sole responsibility, right? Our utility needs better deployed energy efficiency programs. The low-income home energy assistance program that the Fulton Atlanta Community Action Authority distributes, even though about 80% of our participants are eligible for that, only about 10% of them knew about it. So and then we talk about the federally funded weatherization assistance program, which hasn't been operating out of Fulton Atlanta Community Action Authority for, many years at this point. So our residents have to call up to Talatuna or like South DeKalb. So those are conversations that we need to be having as a city with our other partners. The Office of Constituent Services partnered with Howard Grant and the Fulton Atlanta Community Action Authority and Georgia Power on an event here at City Hall late fall, maybe 2023, to get people signed up. We've got to start talking to people about these other programs, and we've got to start partnering. We talk to Georgia Environmental Finance Authority all the time. Of course, we talk and partner with our utility all the time, but we've got to come together on a better strategy because both of those federal funding programs are also on the chopping block. They've got their funding through the end of this year, but after that, we just don't know major impacts to people's, and inability to afford utilities is one of our primary drivers of displacement in the city. So, thank you.
couple of questions for myself, and sticking to the same question that you finished with. You mentioned that 80% of the people eligible for the program, only out of the 80%, only 10 are signed up. Could you?
10% knew about it,
Okay. So is there a kind of knew about it or signed up for it?
knew about it.
Did they sign up?
I would go back to that question, I won't say, but I'm going to say no because they didn't know about it.
Okay. Is there a way we can just automatically include the rest of them in there?
That is the billion-dollar question that many of us and other agencies and advocates have been working on for a long time. What is the one-stop shop for our residents and businesses to be able to sign up for all of these programs at one time? Because right now, we can try to share information and lists or things like that, but every single program is a different application. It's a different set of requirements. There are different application windows. So that is what we are trying to tackle, and hopefully we'll be able to do a better job of tackling with this Neighborly platform and with our innovation director, Ms. Mariama Jai, through our Bloomberg, oh, here she is, just applied for some funding from Partnership for Inclusive Innovation to try to look at some different tools to make that easier.
Okay. In the next report, could you include something about Lake Charlotte Natural Preserve, the Fresh Food app? Is there any kind of way you can get me a heat map so that I can see how many people are actually using it and where they live who are actually using the app from the Fresh Food app?
Okay, yeah.
So I just want to know
We'll see
who's
if we
using
can do
it.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And lastly, on the We Can Rise pilot complete, I want to know how much money did we spend on the canvassing program, because it says 5,482 doors are knocked. And I just thinking about like canvassing in City of Atlanta, how much it costs per door.
Yeah.
So how much money did we spend on that program?
So for Sustainable Georgia Futures, their allocation was about, Amina's back here, let's just say about $240,000. But that had to be supplemented with that philanthropic infusion that they received directly of $750,000 to really scale at the effort that we needed to knock on all those doors and do the follow-up phone calls and train and hire the fellows, pay the fellows, the canvassers, providing them with certain levels of benefits. You know, did they need rides, equipment, technology, iPads, all of the things that you need to run a canvassing operation.
I would like to look into that program.
Okay.
240K, 5,482 doors. I'm just thinking about and I would also like to see a heat map for that, so I can see exactly where they were knocking doors.
Yeah.
And so if you can give me two heat maps, one heat map that says where the 5,482 doors, we knocked that last weekend. 5,482 doors were knocked citywide for the $240,000.
Not citywide, just in
Okay.
our priority geography.
Okay.
So we focused on the city's most energy burdened NPUs. So I can show you which those were.
Perfect. So if I can get a heat map on both of those, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else from my colleagues? Okay. Have some fun. We've been joined by the Honorable Council Member Ishay Collins and the Honorable Council Member Andrea Bone. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. It's been moved and properly second. Moved by Council Member Shook, second by Council Member Collins. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? It's been moved and properly second. Moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved. Mr. Chair, there is no objection from the committee. The sponsor for item number 5 requested to take this item first.
Please.
This takes us to Section H, ordinance for second reading. Item number 5, 2050-1310, an ordinance by Councilmembers Liliana Bakhtiari, Jason Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron Amos, Jason Dozier, Matt Westmoreland, Ishay Collins, Michael Julian Bond, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Andrea L. Boone, Dustin Hillis, Alex Vaughn, and Howard Shook to amend the City of Atlanta Building Code to add a new section for roofing reflectance standards to reduce heat produced by darker roofing materials and for other purposes.
And we have the Honorable Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I appreciate it. Excited to be introducing this legislation, or to talk about it today, and the fact that we were able to get it done. Bless you. And big thanks to my Chief Policy Officer, Alex Fennell, for working on this with me. This is about cool roofs in the city of Atlanta. Mr. Brian Stone, who spoke earlier, actually did a study on this in Oxford. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's in and out? Okay. This is actually a cost-effective measure. It would ensure that we have cool roofs. If we, the science behind it shows that if we hit 80% coverage, it would actually reduce the city's overall temperature by 2.5 degrees, which, as you can imagine, after hearing all the commentary today, is massive. And given the conversation right now about trees, I figure this will be extremely beneficial in the long run, and tackling it now before climate issues get worse, ensure more cost-effective measures down the line. So I asked my colleagues to please pass this today. It'll be dual referred. It is going to CDHS later today, but if you could please pass it out of utilities, I think that'll be a great benefit to this body and to the city.
And any questions from my colleagues?
I have one.
Councilmember Shook.
No, she was first.
Well, Councilmember Collins did say I have one first. So Councilmember Collins.
Thank you for that. Just really quick question. I mean, I'm honored to support this legislation. Just wanting to kind of also understand, I know this is dual with the community, with CDHS committee, and wanting to see the impact in terms of what we're thinking regards to the tree protection ordinance and the long-term investment in this space. I mean, I know that this is just a start of legislation, but truly understanding not only putting these words on paper, but truly moving this in action, and what that investment what we need to do to launch this investment.
Awesome. I'm going to let Ms. Fennell talk, and since she's become a subject matter expert on this over the course of the last year.
Hi, thank you. So Alex Fennell, Councilmember Bakhtiari's office. So as far as what it would cost for us to launch this investment, it costs the city of Atlanta nothing to launch this investment. This creates a new standard for compliance, and just to be clear, although we're using the terms cool roofs, it doesn't require any new, high-tech, expensive, complicated materials. It basically means in most places we'll use lighter colored roof tiles. And so when I say it costs nothing, this proposal is essentially cost neutral. So metal and roofing tiles are already compliant in all colors. And then for asphalt tiles, the most common roofing material that's used, sort of medium grays, medium browns are already compliant. And then there are materials that have become available in the past few years, which again are just regular asphalt roofing tiles. And they're available at the same cost or maybe 2-3 cents more per square foot than other asphalt roofing tiles. So as far as for the city to invest in this, it doesn't cost the city anything to ramp this up, just for enforcement and compliance, which we're already doing through the Office of Buildings through permitting and inspections.
And then the second part in terms of the dual legislation piece of CDHS. And then the second part in terms of the dual legislation piece with CDHS, and what is our intent there?
Yeah, so it's my understanding this paper probably should have only been referred to CDHS, so not exactly sure why the dual referred. So we will just be tackling it in the same way that we are tackling it here in this committee, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And the president decides where the papers go, legislation goes. The next question we have from Councilmember Shook.
Thank you. What zoning classifications does this cover?
So currently, there's already a pretty stringent standard for commercial zoning classifications. It heightens that standard and then does also apply across all residential classifications.
So single family.
Single family as well, yes.
So most shingles are either black or slate gray or somewhere in between. So if I'm re-roofing my house or building a new house, what are my options?
Your options would still be the slate gray, very dark gray, very dark brown. The only option that would potentially be foreclosed is sort of a jet black. There are materials that are available now that get very close to that in the grays and browns, but are not quite the sort of solid black. So there are about 77 asphalt materials that are available across the color spectrum, so a wide variety of choice for single-family homeowners.
Do we have the advantage of seeing what other cities have done with this and what the outcomes were?
There is, I believe, a similar standard in California that governs, which has been very successful. And there, the materials that I'm mentioning that are some of those newer materials have been created by asphalt shingle companies in compliance with that ordinance. So those materials, again, are also widely available. And I believe there are I could send a follow-up of other places that have implemented similar measures, but Atlanta would be in some ways leading the way on expanding this so broadly. And we have the benefit of the work that's come before us and that these materials are available now when they weren't available when some of the earlier cool roof ordinances were passed.
I get nervous when we're the first ones to do anything.
We're not the first, but we might be doing it the best.
Okay, so I've heard yes, no, and maybe now as to whether we're first or not.
No, we're not the first. California has a broad cool roof ordinance that they
Not a
did.
great example for my
No,
morale.
I understand. You go ahead.
So has this been bounced off of any of the professionals who are going to have to comply with this?
So we had meetings with law, Ms. Amber Robinson and Ms. Lauren Clayton were at the table for this. We had met with UDC community for the preservation community, discussions with some of the building community, as well as working with members of the sustainability team and the advocates community because of the smart roofs calls that have been now happening for well over a year, that Ms. Fennell and members of my team attended almost every single one.
What percentage of commercial rooftops where there are very few trees and a lot of really dark roofs, do you happen to have any idea what percentage of those buildings are would be non-compliant with this?
So the state minimum standard, I don't have it in front of me. I think for flat roofs, we're proposing around a 0.7 reflectance. I believe that the state minimum standard is already 0.55. So those dark colors are already prohibited for commercial construction. So it's actually a pretty small increase for commercial construction.
Okay. I understand the science around this. I understand that the want to and what we're trying to do here. I get all of that A to Z. I do worry. I mean, the district I represent, Class B and Class C office spaces are just getting killed. And so I worry about the potential additional burden of increased costs as they try to spiff their buildings up in order to get people inside them. It seems to me that new regulations are rarely cost neutral, and it seems to me that reducing options and choices doesn't tend to drive prices down. I know we're all concerned about affordable housing and the cost of housing. Tell me, how does this work? What's the DCA's involvement? If we pass
also
this, we have to
wanted-
send it to them for approval?
You want to answer that too? No, go ahead.
We do have to forward it to ensure that this regulation is more stringent than the state minimum standards. And then this also will be reviewed by the Office of Buildings, which has 90 days to submit a recommendation of their recommendation on the paper, at which point, if there's no recommendation or an approval, the regulation would be adopted. And if there is a rejection from buildings or city planning, it comes back to this body.
Regarding the science, that is weird. Regarding the science, is there a difference in terms of how unhealthy the air is in a single-family neighborhood versus, your more traditional, dense, urban environment?
I can't speak fully to that, but there certainly is a difference in the quality of those areas. But specifically on this paper, what we're talking about is the urban heat island effect, which is the most intense
Right.
in our more densely populated multifamily areas.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my neighborhood, you can't see a rooftop from Google Earth.
It sounds like then that your roof will do well with any type of refurbishments, given that it'll still look pretty from above when you're flying over it, so.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Don't worry, Councilmember Shook, if you want to ask more questions so we can spend more time together, I can always come by your office after committee, don't worry.
But I think that it's Alex Warren's turn because I remember how we first did the questioning. Then we'll come back to Councilmember Collins after you. Yes, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the research and the work that you've done on it. I mean, I will say from the dual referred side, and as I sit here in City Utilities, I think the lens we're supposed to use on this is the sustainability. And so with that, then yes, I am supportive of this. However, I'm glad that it is going to CDHS because I do think that's where some of the other substantive conversations need to be had, particularly with buildings in the room. To Councilmember Shook's point, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that there isn't a phasing in period of this. Typically, when we add new controls and things like that, there is a kind of a burn-in period, and this one doesn't have one. It's almost effective, except for the 90-day piece, which I do want to talk about. I also would want to hear from industry and understanding kind of what the incremental cost it would be to the single-family house residents to do this and implement, because I don't think we can, as a city, ignore that. I think we do need to think about while it may not be zero cost to us, it does have an impact on our residents and our builders and our office buildings and all that. I will also voice, I kind of have a problem with Section 4, which is the notion of we're going to pass this and then give department 90 days to review it, and if they object, they'll come back. That seems a little backwards. I don't feel like that's how we typically do. I feel like we typically want to work with the departments ahead of proposing something, and that way, when we pass it, it goes. So I'm curious as to why that construct, because it is not usual.
That provision was added pursuant to state law. It was not from our office. So it's in compliance with when increasing the minimum standards with the procedure of having the city department have an opportunity to review before formal adoption.
That's interesting. I'm sorry, what? Lawyer. No, I get it. Again, so are you going in with the presumption that, or an understanding that the department is good with this and isn't going to send it back, or do we know?
I will say that we worked with the department, and we worked with DC Voss, I'm sorry, not DC Voss, oh my God, that's the wrong department.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
DC Young, as well as members of his team, and had a meeting the week before last with also law on, and there was no flags. In terms of how the department communicates with each other, I am not sure, but when we initially presented this, as we have discussed this again over the course of the last year, whatever flags were raised, we made adjustments to. Okay. But this was not at any point in time done quickly or rashly. It made, Ms. Fennell pulled samples. It was circulated through industry. They gave us their feedback, signed off on, but we made sure that a great amount of care was taken in communication and preparation of.
Yeah, I don't question that, and I also understand in my wranglings with the administration sometimes that law is just there to say whether something's legal or not. It doesn't necessarily constitute a departmental approval. So I appreciate that piece. I'm willing to move this, and I'll make the motion to move this forward to the
have-
next
okay, you can.
committee. I'll make the motions. But what I will say is that if it makes it out of CD, this afternoon is before us on Monday, that will be a question I'll have at full council, is the departments,
Understood.
where they stand on it, and if it's, because again, I don't, to the extent that we can do this and then not have to hold our breaths for 90 days to see if they're going to come back with the objection, I'd rather do that, even if it is a state requirement. I just feel like, let's do the homework on the front end. Mr. Chair, I yield, and thank you.
Councilmember Collins?
I think for me, Alex's question just kind of led to the next space for me, but also in combination with Councilman Shook. I do think it's extremely important for us to, on the communication front, to be as transparent and educative in this space for our residents, particularly in the single-family homes sector. So if it is truly cost neutral, we've laid out the map of what that looks like, right? So if a constituent is getting a new roof, the recommendations here, if there are any questions on that piece, I think it's just key for us in that regards.
I do want to remind folks that this is cost neutral. And we can present to you the evidence of the information on that because Alex did a great job of compiling all that. I also want to remind folks that this is going to reduce utilities. So, which is the leading cause of displacement, especially amongst seniors. We're talking about energy burden. So as the conversation continues around trees, yes, that is important, but we need a diversity of tactic when it comes to heat islands because we're not going to be able to plant trees everywhere. We know this. We have to, it's going to be expensive to break up concrete. It's going to be expensive to do those things, which is why we have to combine the way that we do things. There's a reason that life expectancy drops 20 years when you get into Councilmember Lewis or Councilmember Boone's district. So yes, I understand this idea of burdening and this red flag that we have going off because of the fact that we have done a lot to put additional burden on the market to make up for our cost deficits. Completely get that. Alex will send over the information that we gathered, but I do want us to understand that 2 to 3 cents more on a shingle, which some are not going to be, but that is in terms of cost, fairly low for what we're going to see in terms of return on making sure that our residents can stay in their homes and not either die from heat exhaustion in the summer or from cold temperatures in the winter, and making sure that they can actually stay in their homes instead of having to decide between keeping their light or their power on, paying their mortgage, or going to the doctor or eating that week. So I understand the questions are all, I'm really glad that we had such an in-depth discussion. Ms. Fennell is going to send over that information. It'll go to CD and we'll have additional conversation, and then a continued conversation between now and council on Monday. But we will get you that information. I do appreciate the feedback. I do want to assure you all that great thought was put into every detail, and we will get that to you today.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have a few questions, and first, around when you say it goes to when it goes to CDHS, it says this legislation is due for, but it will be forwarded pending a City Utilities Committee recommendation. I want to make sure. So that means if this committee votes yay, it goes. If this committee votes nay, it does not go. That's how or can someone explain that to me? When they say pending a City Utility Committee recommendation. So if we hold it here, it doesn't go to CDHS. I wanted to make sure I said that.
Mr. Chair, if the paper is held, it does not go forward.
That's what I was asking. So I was just saying that based on what Councilmember won, because it said when it goes to both. So the conversation in CDHS does not happen if we don't have the conversation here. So that conversation actually is based on this conversation. And so, but that conversation to me happens, that means we approved it here. And I want to make sure that we are able to be.
Respectfully, you could also forward it with no recommendation.
You're right. Thank you for that. The life expectancy in Councilmember Boone and in my district is 20 years less. I think it because of a lot of social mobility issues that we have in the city of Atlanta that we have to correct. And as a person who grew up in that community, I wrote a note, changed the roof with no money before. And so that means
No, it'll still cost. It's just not going to be more than replacing it with a regular roof that you currently would.
Yep. And I was saying, as a person who grew up in that area, but I changed we helped as a family. We got together. They threw me we got on the roof, and we changed the roof before with no money. And so I'm thinking about how we got supplies and how we would go to different spaces to get places, and the shingles and some of the stuff were only in certain colors on Home Depot on Jonesboro Road, but if you go to a Home Depot in the other area, they have different colors. And so I'm thinking about some of the social mobility issues, some of the issues we have with buying products. And so I'm also thinking about the single-family homes who may have one issue with their roof, who can't afford to change the entire roof. If we do make this ordinance, will they be fined or anything because they can't change the entire roof?
So as this ordinance is written, Councilmember, no. So this does not include roof repairs. So anyone who's making repairs on their roof would not be impacted by this. And that was intentionally because of thinking about lower income families, families on fixed incomes that can't afford to make those changes and need to do patchwork, right? And then additionally, so this only covers full 100% roof replacements and new construction. So again, a family making repairs would not be required to comply or, yeah,
Which city in California, or is that a state ordinance?
statewide.
Okay, and lastly, the supply chain issues that we're having in America right now. I'm just thinking about, we're doing a lot of building, and similar to Councilmember Shook, you can't see my house, you can't see rooftops in my district because of all the woods, not really trees, all the woods that we have around our area. And so myself, with the supply chain issues of getting colors, getting dyes in the area, I can't support this in its current form. I like that we are trying to help people as much as possible, but I think that in its current form, I can't support it. Thank you.
He doesn't understand at all.
Very good. It's okay.
But I won't hurt the legislation. I won't make a motion.
Just,
Moving properly second, moved by Councilmember Wan, second by Councilmember Collins. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 2 abstentions. This item is favorable and will be referred to CDHS.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all and the level of questioning. I hope we continue to see this level of engagement on other pieces of legislation. Thank you.
This takes us to our consent agenda, Section G, ordinance for first reading. Item number 125-01326, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option for agreement number listed herein. Bill printing services with DataMax Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from January 27, 2025 through January 26, 2026. An amount not to exceed $750,000.00, subject to and expressly contingent on adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget, to authorize the mayor or his designee to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement retroactively effective beginning January 27, 2025. Through the exercise of the first renewal option, all contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for the purposes. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section H, ordinance for second reading. Item number 225-01269, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management or his designee to execute a consent order with the Environmental Protection Division, Department of Natural Resources of the State of Georgia to authorize payment pursuant to consent order in the amount of $156,833.25 to resolve permit compliance violations, including unpermitted discharges and effluent permit limit exceedances from July 2023 through November 2024 and for other purposes.
It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 3, 25-01298, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Lewis, waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the fourth renewal option for the intergovernmental joint funding agreement number listed herein. Long-term water quantity and water quality monitoring program services with the United States Geological Survey on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, an amount not to exceed $506,310.00 to authorize the mayor or his designee to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement retroactively effective beginning January 1st, 2025 through the exercise of the fourth renewal option under the agreement. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund department, organization, and account number listed herein and for the purposes.
It's been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 4, 25-01309. An ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond, waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances to ratify services rendered in connection with agreement number listed herein, annual contract for security guard services with Thorpe Building Services Incorporated, All-in-One Security Services Incorporated, a joint venture beginning February 14, 2025 to June 14, 2025 through the execution of the new contract to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Seventh Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Departments of Watershed Management, Public Works, and Transportation to extend the term of the agreement for a period of 4 months, retroactively effective from February 14, 2025 to June 14, 2025, to add funds to the agreement in an amount not to exceed $2,319,873.00. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
A few questions from some of our colleagues. So if the department is,
Good morning, Chair Lewis, Council Member Sterling Graham, Director for the Office of Safety, Security, and Emergency Management outside of Department of Watershed Management.
Councilmember Juan? No. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. The purpose of this legislation is to amend FC 8919 annual contract for security guard services, retroactively for 4 months. The new agreement has already been executed as of late May. This agreement covers about 43 critical infrastructure wastewater facilities. The total contract extension is from about $2.1 million. This amount reconciles any outstanding services that have been rendered on the contract. This concludes my brief, subject to your questions.
Councilmember Juan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. So this one, you said, is we're waiving the code simply because it's retroactive, and then there is another new contract that follows this one. So this is just to close the gap in terms of the old contract and the new contract?
Yeah, that's correct. We've already executed when the implementation phase of the new contract.
Very good. I'll move approval.
Really quickly, just one question, just to be clear. So this amendment is retroactive for the last 4 months in the, to retroactively pay $2.3 million?
2.1 million, yes, ma'am.
So for 4 months, we're going to pay $2.3 million in safety and security services for how many buildings?
So this is a multi-department agreement. We cover roughly 43 critical infrastructure and high security sites. So the burn rate is around about $500,000 for all the departments combined for that period of time. The new agreement is around about $45 million over 3 years, about $15 million a year.
For 40, you said for 43 buildings?
About $45 million over 3 years.
No, it's the number of buildings. You said 43, 40?
43.
43, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
mostly watershed critical infrastructure, but there's some high security sites for transportation and public works.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that, thank you.
And And listening to my colleagues' questions, I just want to make sure I say the number. So $600,000 a month for 4 months?
About $500,000 a month for all 3 departments. Yes.
Safe and secure, we do know that, but thank you again.
The vote is open, the vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays, this item is favorable. This takes us to Section I, Resolutions, item number 6, 25R3522. A resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to exercise the first renewal option for a sole source agreement number listed herein. Enquesta Customer Information System Maintenance Support and Related Services with Systems and Software Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management, amount not to exceed $4,591,893.09, subject to and expressly contingent on the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget. All contract award will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
It's been moved and about to be properly second, but moving properly second, please open the vote. And we'll let you know if some of my colleagues have questions.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 7, 25R3523, a resolution by City Utilities Committee to amend Resolution 23R3208, adopted as amended by the Atlanta City Council on April 17, 2023, and approved per City Charter Section 2-403 on April 26, 2023, by correcting the annual authorized not to exceed amount of $1,500,000.00 to reflect an allocation and encumbrance to not exceed $4,500,000.00 during the initial term for the contract number listed herein, recyclables processing services with Pratt Recycling Incorporated, pursuant to Section 2-1191.1 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Public Works for duration of the agreement and all work to be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
We have a question from Councilmember.
It's a quick question. All we're doing is because it was 1.5 million for 3 years, that's why we get the 4.5 million. Correction, it's not, we are increasing it from 1.5 million a year to 4.5 million a year, correct? It's just the aggregate amount.
Good morning, Kanika Greenlee, Department of Public Works. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'll move approval.
Been moving properly second. Please open the vote.
The vote is closed. I'm sorry, the vote is open. Excuse me. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today's City Utilities Committee meeting.
And one note before we leave, once again, if we can get the requested items in K, if departments can start looking at K to try to get requested items actually done for us. Thank you to DPW for the things that you did last week. But if we can try to get the things that are done in K done in the city. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.